and my law tells me to disobey. And my law is a moral law. That's how Satyagraha then became the word for the deepest democracy. The ability to say no to injustice. And when I realized what they were writing in GATT, Patent Exceed, how do you fight with all this? I said, the only way you can deal with it is do what Gandhi did. So he did two things that we learned lessons from. The first thing he did was, you remember he did the Satyagraha, of course. So we said we do the beach Satyagraha. The other thing he did was, in 1930, they passed a salt law. So Indians can't make salt because the British wanted a monopoly on salt. So it's so important, you know. We live in a hot climate and we perspire a lot, so we use a lot of salt. So we have to have a lot of salt. So Gandhi just started to walk towards the beach and people kept joining him. So they call it Gyara Murti in Delhi, you know, at the Rashtrapati Bhavan crossing. The very beautiful Kinkar has made that sculpture, very beautiful, of Gandhi marching and people following. And in 1917, it was 100 years of the Indigo Satyagraha. We decided to have a celebration of all our Satyagrahas. We began with Meerut, which was our first fight against colonialism. At that time, the ruler was not a British Empire, it was the East India Company. So the people of the Meerut area organized, and that's called the first movement of independence, and they drove the East India Company out. So East India Company was first created for India, but was also driven out in India. I think there's a restaurant called East India in London now, but the company called East India doesn't exist anymore. And we honored the descendants of people who had fought for that first movement. You know, they were all laborers working on roads, breaking stones. They used to be landlords at that time. All their land was taken away. You know? And then we went all the way to Champaran, where the Indigo Satyagraha was fought. And we did a Satyagraha with the people in Champaran and also in Patna. And then we went all the way to Odisha, where they had, you know, the salt Satyagraha was fought on the west coast of India. But like wildfire, it spread all over. It spread to the east coast, and we found 45,000 people had been killed in Odisha for making their own salt. So we had a ceremony of salt making, and schools joined, peasants joined, and we honored the descendants of those who had lost their lives during the 1930 revolt. But we also found, now 2 years ago we had a celebration here, 3 valleys up in the mountains. Can you imagine where Dandi is and where these mountains are? But people immediately took the message of the salt Satyagraha and applied to the forest. He said, you know, nature basically, we applied it to the seed. And this quote of Gandhi always inspired me. You know, nature gives it for free, we need it for our survival. Therefore, we will never obey any law that makes it inaccessible. Nature gives salt for free in the sea. Nature gives seed for free. Nature gives our forests. It cannot be the property of a ruler. Yeah? So here they did, आपने सुना होगा तिलारी का मैसेकर किया था. So तिलारी सॉल्ट सत्याग्रह से जुड़ा हुआ है. उसी दिन हुआ जब गांधी ने मार्च किया, दांडी मार्च किया, उसी दिन में यहाँ पे लोग इकट्ठा हो गए कि हम जंगल रूरल के नहीं है, जंगल गांव के हैं। प्रकृति ने हमें जंगल दिए हैं देखभाल करने के लिए और हमारी जरूरतें पूरी करने के लिए। To meet all our needs, the forest meets all our needs, you know. So,
Where is Tilali?
Tilali is 2 valleys up. So there's the first valley, and then another valley up is Tilali. You know, this is the Yamuna Valley and its tributaries. And we have worked in villages all along, including when I first went to that village, I really felt I was in Switzerland. It's called Sankri. And I said, your place is so beautiful, why don't we start ecotourism? And they have started. And we've started ecotourism in many places, but most communities are not able to manage it. But this valley, they've been able to manage it. And the person who has started all the ecotourism, he was part of Natanya, and we trained him in biodiversity, so he's also a biodiversity guide. He can point to every plant and what is there. We have a seed bank up there. And because anyway, you can't just grow food, you have to cook it and eat it. So he has resurrected all the traditional dishes. I think on 10th we are going to do a 10th is the day of the festival of pulses, the day of the festival of legumes. We will be having our farmers, because the British had driven out the legumes. The Green Revolution had no place for pulses. So this farm grows diversity, and like I said, climate change is testing us. You know? The kind of predictability we used to have, you know. But when I talk to older people, they talk about 8 seasons in India. Up to we talk about 4. But there was so much variation that was predictable. And they always wrote the panchang. You know, grow this at this time, grow this at this time. I don't know what's happening to the panchang. My sister, of course, Dr. Meera Shiva, uses the panchang for the exact dates and festivals, because they tell you which date things will be closed, because the other calendars won't tell you.
In either parts of Punjab, they still use the panchang and the mar and the chase to plant and take out some very, very deep bits of Punjab still, but not much around that. But the panchang is still used in some parts of it, and the older minutes are put in there. But because I come from a very small place in Punjab, so the smaller villages still use it.
I think the traditional farmers still use the panchang. Even in the mountains, I mean, our Garhwali, they use the panchang that we have to plant this. But the climate is changing. You know, that is the issue.
South of India, we use it on a daily basis.
Yes, I can.
We don't go out of the house in Rahu Kalam. We have so many restrictions.
Restrictions,
on
yes.
Not to go back maybe 50 years ago, it was more restricted. Now, not so much, but
Yeah.
even now, they definitely see the panchang
Before they, yes,
step
yes.
out.
And in our place, they tell you this is to be done, this is not to be done, and you don't listen. You say, okay, okay. And you do.
So, I think you will be in conversation with the farm over the next 2-3 days you're here. But I think let's use the remaining time for any queries you might have.
Vandaji, I have come here with my interns in 2006, and I cannot even tell you what a beautiful place it has become. Now at that time only we were completely gobsmacked when, you know, that time this beej, आपका जो beej आप bank कर रखती हैं, the seed bank, उसकी बात हो रही थी, and we had lunch over here, and you know we were like wow, and up to it's become like a heaven.
So
I have come here after so long.
So internships for what?
This is for my own foundation program that I run in Bharatwala. We do mostly literacy and livelihoods, craft work. But we are slowly moving into agriculture now. So at that time, of course, it was mostly literacy. So I had got them here because I was speaking about you, and I had taken them to Navdanya at Delhi Hat. You remember there used to be...
Yeah. We had to only close it because of COVID.
Correct.
Because they kept taking the rent from us, but we weren't allowed to run it because of all the restrictions. And there's no way we could pay 8 salaries and a huge fat rent. So eventually we had to give it up, even though it was a lovely place.
Yes. And all our, every year, we've been running it from 2006. Every year, once during the program, we would go to Delhi Hat and they would go to Navdanya. And, we would talk about whatever. The whole system stands for Navdanya. So I got them to the farm that time.
And I don't think we had the Beach Vidya Peeth then. The Beach Vidya Peeth started in 2000.
So, for me, it was like, there was a reason to come, and I was so happy that I wanted to see all the developments, and they are spectacular. I'm so glad that you've been able to, push forward here also. Beautiful.
So now you can bring them to stay.
Yes, of course, absolutely. It goes without saying. Our program also kind of fell during COVID because, we are working with the universities and everybody was very shary of, and then, all other things were happening in India that kind of added to the confusion. But now we are again starting, and this will be a part of the program for them to come and visit.
I'd like
Yeah.
to pose a practical query. All of us here, we come from different spaces, different backgrounds. How is it that we can contribute or we can practice this philosophy into a practical lifestyle in our own spaces? That piece of advice from you that can be very helpful for us.
The good thing is, eating is not a luxury that only some people can participate in. It is not the creation of Dolce and Gabbana. What are those Italian names? I don't even know. Anyway, eating is something all living systems do. All living systems. All living beings eat. There's a very powerful Upanishad called the Taittiriya Upanishad. It says, things that in Western science I could not find, I find in Taittiriya Upanishad. It says everything is food. Everything is something else's food. That's all we are. We're someone else's food. And we know that after our lives are gone. So when you say, how can we contribute? Each of us can contribute through mindful eating. Also because the biggest chronic diseases now are related to food. The packages look fine, but the little things they add in it, what it does in the body, nobody has studied it. A dear colleague of mine wrote a book called The Fast Food Nation. His name is Eric Schossler. And I remember one thing he did in it, that instead of just putting one strawberry to make a strawberry ice cream, they used 32 kinds of chemicals untested as substitutes for strawberry flavor. And I'd once been called to give a lecture at Caltech, which is the California Institute of Technology. And I related to it as a place where people used to do physics research. So I said, what is the focus of the research of this institute? They said, finding substitutes for natural products. Chemicals that can mimic natural products. But the problem is that every every molecule interacts with all other molecules. And that's where I have called it the metabolic disease. I have called climate change the metabolic disease of the earth. Like human beings are getting metabolic diseases. We don't even know what we are doing. You know, how we are disrupting the system. So we can begin with food. You're already like an organized group, you know. And Navdanya is an organized network. Take this residency forward. Think about it. Think about how we can make it more regular, you know. One idea that was already coming in my mind was, some people tell me that near Thano, they've set up some Kabir center. Anyone knows about it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It is set up by Nishant's daughter. No, younger. The ex-chief minister of Pakistan.
Yeah.
His daughter has set that up.
So because, you know, if you really think of it, every doha of Kabir is a whole lesson by itself. You know? Because when we drive, you know, it's a long way from town here. Meera sometimes has her phone on and things play on it. And there was a Kabir Doha being played called, you know, the leaf is saying to the tree, please don't shed me this year, you know, I want to continue to belong to you. And the tree is saying, but the wreath of nature is that I have to shed you and new leaves must come, you know. And my colleague who runs the international program from Italy, she was saying actually there's a story like that in Italy. And when she lost her grandmother, her mother-in-law, her child could not understand what happened. Where is the grandmother? So she recited the story of the leaf and the tree, and that, you know, old leaves fall, new leaves come. This is how life goes on. Then he understood. Then he understood that, you know, as a way of nature, as a way. Okay. So what can we do to continue? One is continue the networks you can build while you're here. And I think if any of you, if you can get together and maybe you can take the initiative, I think we should start an organic group in the valley,
Sure.
you know?
We still have that group that we created, Friends of Himalayas. We still have that.
Yeah,
So we can activate them and
Yeah.
we can have that.
yeah. I remember we created at the press conference. Yeah.
Yes. It was during, after the Kedarnath
Yeah, disaster, yeah.
Yes.
So one is that, and I think the other dream I have is, for too long we separated science and culture. They're in different silos. But they have to become one, you know? And are any of you artists?
So Dr. Usha Ake here is doing something tomorrow. We have Dr. Usha Ake who was from Ministry of Culture, and she was the director of the JNCC Moscow. So she's presenting something tomorrow. Maybe you can tell briefly about it, because I think that is one of the beautiful amalgamation of
That's
both
the
science
dance.
and culture.
That's
Yes.
good, yeah?
Yeah.
So I thought it would be interesting that since this place was called Navadhanya, we almost always use this word in Vedic literature during Navaratri. Many of the states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, they have the Navadhanya, they grow them, the sprouts on all those 9 days. It's very popular. So I thought that, and that is kept in front of the deity or Devi or whichever deities. So I thought we should do something on food for God, which is Naivedya. And it sounded very important to bring that to the fore, because while we offer food or when we offer our prayers, prayer or the food cooked or fruits or whatever it may be has this whole feeling of samarpan, is to surrender, and that is the key word for everything. Even food while we grow, we have to surrender to Mother Earth, and then only she will give us what we need. So everywhere we have found that the word surrender is very important. So food for gods, like this beautiful place that is there, in the word Navadhanya just attracted me, and I came up with this. So we'll be doing 2 or 3 small pieces in dance. We'll explain the Vedic mantras that are chanted during when the Pandit is offering, when you're offering the Naivedyam, they say a few things. So what are those mantras? What do they mean? What are we trying to tell the Lord when we are giving it to Him? Like we say that to all Atithis who come to our house, because they are gods at that point in time. So just the concept of Naivedya is what we
Wonderful.
And then we have Ramlal Bhatt ji, who's a puppeteer, who's performing today in the evening. So आप भी बोल सकते हैं रामलाल जी.
मेरे ख्याल से आइडिया बहुत अच्छा है कि कल्चर और लाइफ एक साइड साथ में आए, जो खाना और ज़िंदगी और उसका जो कल्चरल वैल्यू है, तो कल्चरल मतलब सिर्फ स्ट्रक्चर देखें तो नहीं है. कल्चर में मतलब जो हमें जोड़ती है, जो हमें कनेक्ट करता है, मेरे ख्याल से वो वाली चीज़ें ज़्यादा इफ़ेक्टिव, और वो मुझे लगता है आर्ट में और एक मल्टीपल आर्ट फॉर्म अगर इकट्ठा किया जाए, डिफरेंट तरीके के, उसमें जैज़ भी हो तो फोक भी हो तो क्लासिकल भी हो तो लोकल भी हो, तो मेरे ख्याल से वैसी चीज़ शायद एक इस आइडिया को काफ़ी बड़ा करता है.
आपने कहा था कि आप यहाँ आए थे जब फुकुओका जी यहाँ आए
जी
थे.
जी
तो वो जो दूसरी हट है ना,
हाँ जी जी
वो फुकुओका हट है, उनके
जी।
लिए बनाई थी हमने.
जी.
और 1 महीने रहे थे वो यहाँ.
हाँ जी, मुझे पता है, मैं उस समय बहुत बार आता था उनका, मुझे क्योंकि उस समय मुझे बहुत सारी चीज़ें सीखने की दौर में था, तो मेरे लिए यहाँ से बहुत कुछ सिखाया गया इसलिए.
If any one of you has any other questions, please go ahead and ask. Yes.
Dr. Shiva, thank you so much first of all for reminding us of many things that you did just now. How do we mobilize our youth? Which I feel, I see that they, obviously in the universities nowadays, it's all about job-ready graduates, and let us just go for opportunities, be entrepreneurs and all of that is there, but we still are lacking this passion within the youth. It's just my feeling, I could be wrong, but this is just my feeling. So I do want to know that your ideas, if there is something that we can do to mobilize our youth towards this better than what we are doing right now.
I have a feeling that the current economy is a very short-lived economy. For one, nothing is in proportion with anything else. When I talk to young people, they will never talk of less than 2 lakh salary, 3 lakh salary, 5 lakh salary. When they're leaving school, they never have time to think, oh, this is what brings me meaning. This is what brings me satisfaction. They only think of how much I can earn. And they are not thinking of when the collapses come. Because anything that's overgrown collapses. So the way we've tried to involve the youth is to bring dignity to things that everyone participates in. Most people of India, 75% of India is involved in farming. So 75% of Indian youth is involved in farming. And yet they're being told, get rid of farming. We did a rough calculation, Mr. Shukla, who used to be the CAT ambassador, and we calculated, said, if we had to reproduce all the jobs that urban areas offer, with all the displaced people from rural areas, how many years would it take? It turned out about 400 years. In 400 years, 400 years, the unemployed youth of rural areas will have a small chance. So I think our creativity has to focus on three things. One, how to bring dignity to food and agriculture, and that's where the issue of art and culture, that's where the inspiration comes from. The second thing we do is show that you cannot measure all that in money. Because cheap food, I can't believe in the States, the entire areas that are called food deserts. There is no food there, They have cat food and dog food, especially in the areas, discriminated areas. So I have worked with a lot of groups to create gardens in these places. So the second thing is, we should not let money tell the story. We should tell the reality of the relationship of food with the soil, with our body and health. And the third thing, I used to be in Bangalore. I used to be first part of Indian Institute of Science, and then Indian Institute of Management. And our director at that time used to be the specialist in animals. And I remember, that's when I was expecting my child, and my landlady invited me. And she said, I'm not giving you a sari, because if I give you a blue sari, you might have wanted a green one. If I give you a green sari, you might have wanted a red one. You will never be satisfied. But I give you a good meal, you will eat as much as you can eat, and you will be satisfied. So she cooked a special meal for me. And she's the reason I always wear the bindi. Because she said, always wear the bindi. Because when you wear a bindi, the eyes go here. They don't go all over the place. Of course, later, while reading literature, I realized the bindi and the bindu is central to the philosophy of the yantra as a feminist force. Because, and this is where science comes together, that all yantras are combinations of triangles and circles. And every triangle is 3 lines enclosing a space. Every circle is a line going around the center. But a line and a circle is a moving dot. So you can construct the whole world from a dot. That this contains the universe. सब कुछ बस एक छोटी से बिंदु में. In quantum theory, we use the term, the whole universe is enfolded in this dot. And when it unfolds the whole mystery of the universe. So I think beginning with food is where you can take this and then connect the dots, you say? Connect to what already exists. I think it's always thinking you have to always begin from scratch. No, you just have to join things that exist, and it creates a different whole.
Anyone else with the questions? He's a farmer who's joining us from Doiwala, and his father is into farming as well, but unfortunately he says his father has gotten into chemical farming, and he's the one who's getting into organic.
मेरा सवाल ये है कि हम आजकल देखते हैं कि हमारी जो देश की पॉलिसीज़ है वो हमारे खेत को, किसान को, नेचर को ख़त्म करने को लगी हुई है। तो ये इस लेवल की अवेयरनेस हम अपने फार्मर्स के बीच में कैसे लेकर जाएं कि पॉलिसीज़ लेवल पे उनको कितना डिस्टर्ब किया जा रहा है? क्योंकि मैं एक जितना भी देखता हूँ किसानों के बीच में जाकर, तो एक ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग करने का लेवल की जानकारी तो उनके पास है, बट कैसे हमारी देश की पॉलिसीज़ खेत को, किसान को ख़त्म कर रही है, उस लेवल की अवेयरनेस देखने को नहीं मिलती है। तो वो हम कैसे अपने किसानों के बीच में लेकर जाएँ? और मेरा दूसरा सवाल ये है कि आज करंट के टाइम में फार्मर के लिए और खेती के लिए क्या चैलेंजेस हैं? जब हम बात करते हैं AI की और रोबोटिक फार्मिंग की बात करते हैं, ये दो क्वेश्चन है।
हाँ, तो पहला, अगर आप नवदानिया के लिटरेचर को देखें, उसमें आप अगर बोर्ड देखें आते हुए, ये रासायनिक मुक्त फार्म है। ये रसायन तो हिटलर के टाइम के बने हुए हैं, उसके पहले भी खेती होती थी, प्रकृति भी खेती करती है। हाँ? तो वो ही काम जो रासायनिक के लिए बेचे जाते हैं, वो काम प्रकृति में कैसे होते हैं वो, और अगर रासायनिक इस्तेमाल करते हो वो क्या हानि करते हैं किसान के लिए, प्रकृति के लिए और स्वास्थ्य के लिए, तीन चीज़ों, क्योंकि सब में ज़्यादा हानि आजकल, हमारी दीदी MD मेडिसिन की हैं, तो एक भी क्लास नहीं हुई थी इनकी, पंजाब में ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन के इलाके में एडमिट होते थे लोग, पर पेस्टिसाइड पॉइजनिंग के वो है नहीं, सब न्यूरो डिजीज के पेशेंट थे। When I used to go visit her in the hospital, and I used to see these big fellows lying, I used to faint. I could not see it. You know? I could not see her studying her books with blood and bones, and she could not see me studying my books with equations. You know? And it's only in 1982, 82, I think. 86. We were both invited to a meeting on, it was called The Science of Life, and it was in France and in Geneva in Switzerland. And I thought the invitation was for her. She thought the invitation was for me, because I said I don't do biotech. So we said, okay, let's go together. Since that time, we have looked at each other's work. Before that, we just could not see how the other person could do what they were doing. You know? But तो रासायनिक से क्या क्या हानि होती है वो हमारी किताबें हैं। एक मेरी किताब है जो एक पब्लिशर ने मेरे को सुना और कहा, अच्छा ऑर्गेनिक में ज्ञान भी है। तो मैंने कहा आप क्या सोचते थे? मैंने कहा था बस मार्केटिंग का एक रास्ता है, बस एक ब्रांड नेम है। ऐसे नहीं, बहुत ज्ञान है इसमें, ज़्यादा ज्ञान है। केमिकल में तो कुछ ज्ञान नहीं है, कैसे मारो, मारने के लिए अगर मैं शूट करूं उसमें ज्ञान चाहिए मुझे आपका? नहीं, बस एक ट्रिगर चलाने की वो चाहिए। तो एक तो उन्होंने कहा हम हमारे लिए किताब लिखते रहेंगे। मैंने कहा मैं अपने सारे लिखी हुई चीज़ों को इकट्ठा कर दूँगी। तो एक किताब है बायोडाइवर्सिटी, एग्रो इकोलॉजी एंड भावना। भावना नहीं है, नहीं है, अच्छा, एग्रो इकोलॉजी।
I'll get the book.
It's, yeah.
Biodiversity.
And initially, you know, they sent me I was teaching in the US when they sent me. The first time they sent me the cover, it was a light bulb. I said, this looks very silly. Then they sent me a cover with my photo in it. I said, this looks also silly. They said, no, but this will sell. I said, okay, you're a publisher, you're bothered about selling. I will never look at the cover. So that has a lot of हर केमिकल का क्या इस्तेमाल है और क्या कर रहा है, और जो डॉक्टर मीरा शिवा MD है, इनने भी पेस्टिसाइड पे बहुत काम किया है, क्योंकि बहुत सारे आजकल के डिजीज़ पेस्टिसाइड से हैं। फिर दूसरा था आजकल क्या चैलेंजेस हैं किसान के लिए। आई थिंक 2 चैलेंजेस हैं। एक वही चैलेंज जिसकी वजह से नवतानिया बना, जिसको कहते हैं फ्री ट्रेड, और मैं कहती हूँ अनफ्री ट्रेड, क्योंकि वो बांध के सबको बांध देता है। तो और ये जो ट्रम्प 500% टैरिफ कर रहे हैं, 500% में आप क्या बेचोगे? वैसे भी बासमती महंगा है, अगर 500% ड्यूटी लग गई उस पर तो कहाँ बिकेगा? अगर एक साड़ी 100 रुपये की है और 500% इस पर ड्यूटी लग गई तो कौन पहनेगा? नहीं पहन सकते। तो एक तो वो फ्री ट्रेड है और ये पैटर्न्स एंड ओनरशिप ऑफ लाइफ है, और दूसरा आपने AI का कहा, हाँ, इट्स दिस वन, दैट्स राइट, आई गेस this is the right book. Yeah, you can shut your eyes to the cover. But this has all my writings since 1980, since I wrote the book on Punjab. You know, I don't have a chapter on AI and tech.
You can just pass it around.
You can pass them around. और AI और टेक में क्या है दिक्कत? उसमें दिक्कत ये है कि हमें सच और झूठ में का फर्क ढूंढ ही नहीं पाते हैं। क्या सच है, क्या झूठ है, क्या बनावटी है, क्या असलियत है। एम्पैथी तो छोड़ो, रियलिटी बिटवीन द डिफरेंस बिटवीन रियलिटी एंड तो
मैम एक्चुअली मेरा पहला क्वेश्चन शायद मैं आपको अच्छे से समझा नहीं पाया। मेरा पहला क्वेश्चन ये था कि जो हमारी पॉलिसीज़ हैं गवर्नमेंट की, वो हमारे खेत को और किसान को ख़त्म कर रही हैं। तो उस लेवल की अवेयरनेस हम अपने किसान तक कैसे पहुँचाएं कि वो मतलब कैसे वो पॉलिसीज़ हम पे जो अच्छी नहीं है वो उन पर थोपी जा रही है ज़बरदस्ती, विद द गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स, FPOs और बड़े बड़े लोन्स। तो उसको हम कैसे मतलब अपने किसानों तक गली गली वो बात लेकर जाएँ किसानों के बीच में।
एक्चुअली जब मैंने किताब मंगाई ना, उसी लिए मंगाई थी कि पॉलिसीज आखिर में शब्द होती हैं, शब्दों को डिसाइफर करना किसान को। भाई ये शब्द क्या शब्द था? वो खरपतवार, और जिन चीज़ों को कहना था ये जहर है, उनको कहा कीटनाशक दवाई। सोचो, जब आप किसी चीज़ को दवाई कहोगे तो किसान तो और इस्तेमाल करेगा ना। दवाई तो बीमारी के लिए इस्तेमाल होती है। तो जैव विविधता बीमारी नहीं है, जैव विविधता नेचर की असलियत है। अब दिक्कत ये हो गई है, और ये सच है कि आजकल नीति यहाँ ले जा रही है और कहा जा रहा है यहाँ ले जा रही है ना। इसलिए आर्ट की जरूरत है। क्यों? आर्ट में आप झूठ बोल के नाच नहीं सकते, आपको असलियत में नाचना होगा, है ना। इसलिए आपको आर्ट के थ्रू सच्चाई लानी है लोगों के सामने। और मैंने जब पूछा था आप में कोई आर्टिस्ट है, इसलिए पूछा था कि ये जो हमने वैज्ञानिक रूप में अब तो मेरे को 40 साल हो गए ये काम करते हुए। अब हमको एक बहुत सुंदर किताब, एक चेन्नई के पब्लिशर हैं, अभी मिले थे, पब्लिशर्स इवेंट था, छोटे पब्लिशर्स, छोटे ऑथर्स, छोटी दुकानें, क्योंकि आजकल तो सब कुछ अमेज़ॉन खा गया। तो वो दुकानें, उन दुकानों में इंडिपेंडेंट पब्लिशर्स की किताबें बिकती हैं। और एक साउथ की एक पब्लिशर है, उनने मेरे से बात की, आप बीच में काम करते हो, मैं किताब लिखना चाहते हैं, हम कुछ क्वेश्चन पूछेंगे, आप बस जवाब दे देना और किताब हम बनाएंगे। और उनने इतनी सुंदर किताब बनाई है, पता नहीं हमारे पास है कि नहीं, वो यहाँ दिल्ली में तो है, और उस किताब का नाम है बावरे बीज। कुछ जाते हैं इधर से उधर को, आप बीज को रोक नहीं सकते उगने से। और ये बीज को मैन्युफैक्चर के रूप में दिखाना चाहते हैं कि वो ही बीज है जो हम बनाएं और हम बेचें, और उसकी इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी हमारे पास हो। तो बावरे बीज, तो इस तरह की हमको छोटी छोटी चीजें पे लिखाई चाहिए और फैलाना चाहिए, और गीत बनाने चाहिए।
आज वो कर रहे हैं रामलाल जी अपने प्रेजेंटेशन में,
हाँ,
एक चिड़िया अपना मन के बारे में बोल रही है कि क्या हो रहा है उसके साथ। इट्स गोइंग टू बी ब्यूटीफुल, अभी हम देखेंगे थोड़ी।
Anyone else has a question?
Yeah, there is this thing, जैसे हम लोग दिल्ली में, we are in Delhi or something like that. Everybody is writing up, आप Blinkit ले लो, कुछ भी ले लो, आप शॉप पे चले जाओ. They have cheapened organic on everything almost now. Without having, I actually don't know that if I'm taking it for my 6-year-old child or not, or I'm taking it for my brother or my sister, is that really organic or not? Is there a policy behind it that you can actually write organic or not?
There is, but nobody follows.
But nobody's sticking to it, right? My point is that they are writing organic on so many things now, and all they're doing is taking a price cut over it.
yeah.
So there is this FSAI.
Yeah, that too, FSSAI. That too, you can play with it.
वो सेम वो नाम बोल रहे हो, कब सिर्फ पे वो कोई चीज मारते हैं.
No, but that's the,
Yes,
their mind
yes.
it is, that's the
Yes,
recognizable.
yes.
That's my point.
Yeah.
I think
So, you know, like I said, that publisher who made me write that book, for them it was merely a marketing instrument. You know, the word organic, you know what its original meaning is? The word organic meant the science of life,
science of organisms, yeah.
Organic chemistry.
Yeah.
the science of life.
Yeah.
And it was created exactly at the same time when chemicals were being brought into agriculture, organic movement. We must understand first how
They
things
create a
work.
paradox before they release something. You're right about that. Right.
So, when it's organic is put on a label, you can't predict,
But they are putting it, but so we can't do much about it right now.
because they can charge a higher price, they can charge a
Yeah.
premium. So the best security is knowing the farmer, knowing your organic farmer. That's why the relationships between eater and farmer must grow strong.
Yeah, they're putting an organic label on a 240 GSM plastic bag and selling it. That's even worse.
Yeah.
All these years that you've been spending so many decades of your work, what has been your, I would say, when you look back and you see the biggest challenge and that you faced over the years, which you felt that you were not able to satisfactorily or to your satisfaction deal with it, and what was the biggest win?
I think the biggest challenge is now, because 30 years ago, when the GATT came, we could state things as they were. That these are the companies, this is what they're doing. When they say intellectual property, this is what it means. We could write about it. And even more importantly, I could get ministers to write forwards to these books. You know? So when you say what's the biggest win, I think the biggest win for me is we took on the fact that living systems are self-organized and they are not an invention of big companies. You know? And so I fought cases against what I call biopiracy, and I have a book called Biopiracy. The patenting of neem, the patenting of basmati, the patenting of wheat, and we won these cases. We won these cases, you know. And the word biopiracy is now in the GATT agreement, and so I think that's our biggest win. Yeah.
Dr. Shiva, I have so many questions for you. I've watched your talks over many years, but now that I knew I was coming, I rewatched a lot of your content on YouTube, whether it's about quantum mechanics or oneness against the 1%. I'll boil it down to two questions. I know everyone, we don't have too much time. Are you optimistic about the future with all the knowledge you have, even the quantum mechanics? And are you optimistic with
I'm
AI?
optimistic. I'm
with
optimistic.
AI coming, with the way, that's my first question. And my second question is, when I look around, I just see unethicalness everywhere. And my question is, in your opinion, how do you make the unethical ethical?
I'm optimistic because for me, optimism is not a thing. Optimism is an attitude. It's action. And you cultivate optimism, you know?
Yeah.
So if you do the things that create hope, of course optimism will grow. If you,
No, I mean, not personally. Personally, I'm very optimistic. Do you see the world, the way we are heading? Are you optimistic about our world?
you know, that's why, for me, the quantum thinking leads to optimism.
Yeah.
For two reasons. One, it tells you everything is uncertain. If we were Cartesian and we said the world is going this way or the world is going this way, and if it's going this way, then it must go this way, and then you must be a pessimist. Of course you must be a pessimist. But if you don't know which way it's going, you know, and the uncertainty gets weighed by your actions. That's why I'm optimistic. And when you say personally and on the whole, you know, the whole is not separate from people. There's nothing like a whole standing by itself. There's no whole called Mr. Trump. No. He's just a Mr. Trump. You know, when he started the tariff wars, our brother forwarded my sister, because she has WhatsApp on her thing, I don't. You know, in the days when Kashmir was the big film theme, and there's a song, Tareef Karoon Kya Kiski, and they're playing that song with Trump, and you know, his blonde hair, and blue eyes, and of course his tan skin.